Up next, we have another. I'm just blessed to know some of these people. And they're just friends, and they do. Our next speaker helped me come up with the idea and the name Storycatcher. A lot of you don't know that. We've had lots of fun laughs. We've had lots of deep conversations. He's one of the most incredible people I know, has a heart the size of Texas, because that's what we say where I'm from, in Texas. He's the Director of Experience for Social Media Examiner. You'll see him all the time at Social Media Marketing World. He's a staple of the industry. He's a face that goes along with social media marketing. But he has a new book that he's written. He's got copies, and I'm going to let him talk about it. But I came up with a little something special for him to kind of welcome to the stage. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you'll welcome my friend, Phil Mershon.
All right. Hello. Welcome to me, and thank you for being here. Jen Watson, here you go. E.T. is holding your phone. Phone home, says your daughter. All right, I've got a very serious question for all of you right now, because we're going to have a break after I'm done. So we're already probably thinking about food and snacks. So here's the serious question. Do you like licorice? All of you who like licorice, raise your hand high. All right, now it gets more serious. If you like red licorice, stand up. All of you who like red licorice, and yell, I like red licorice. All right, you can sit down. If you like black licorice, will you stand up? Yell it. I like black licorice. All right. Other than getting you off of your chair, there was you can sit down. There's actually a point to this story. When I was 7 years old, I took a music class put on by the Yamaha Music School. And at the end of this one-year class, Jim Starkey, the owner of the music store, took all of us students, like 15 or 20 of us, into the showroom. And he showed us all of the instruments, and they sparkled. And he said, boys and girls, what do you want to play? And then he turned and looked at me, and he said, Philip, because I wasn't Phil yet, Philip, what do you want to play? And I'm the guy that likes possibilities, and I have a hard time narrowing them down. I'm like, I don't know. And he said, do you want to play the licorice stick? And I said, well, what's that? I like licorice. And then he turned on Pete Fountain, and I was sold. I want to play the clarinet. And the clarinet turned into the saxophone, the guitar, the soprano sax, the tenor sax, the flute, the piano, the bass, the penny whistle. In fact, the ROI on that one question was over $125,000 over the course of my life. I'm probably the only one of those students who went on and made a career out of music. And it started with Mr. Starkey and a twinkle in his eye asking that question. All of us in our businesses, whether it's online or in person, have those opportunities to have a customer experience that can profoundly affect someone's future. The return on it can be immense. Maybe it's more than that, maybe it's less, but the memory that we make will have an emotion. You heard it. I'm still, 50 years later, impacted by that moment. I'd like to introduce to you my friend, Rembrandt. Terry, are you here? Terry Weaver first named him Kumbu because in Swahili, Kumbu or Kukumbu means to remember, shortened means remember. Let me tell you his story though. Kumbu was born in a small village in Kenya, and his dad was the village chief. His aunt was a baker. His uncle is a crazy scientist named Einstein. Well, it was his aunt who discovered that Kumbu could paint. Tourists started coming on safaris, and they saw this painting elephant, and they thought it was a marvel, and so they bought it. Increasingly, he got a reputation, and eventually, a European master artist discovered Kumbu and said, "Come with me to Europe." And after some debate, Kumbu went to Europe, and while he was there, he fell in love with Rembrandt, the Dutch artist. And so his friends named him Remembrant because he likes to remember. But why it's important to you today, in your business or your event, Remembrant comes along because he has big ears and he hears lots of things that we don't hear. He whispers in our ears and says, "This is what your customers are saying." And because he's the elephant in the room, he can say all the things no one else will tell you. Now, all that to say, if you count how many times Remembrant shows up in this presentation, not counting this one, someone's going to get a free book. First person to the table with the right number will get a free copy of the book. All right, so let's move on. What makes something unforgettable? There's lots of things you could say. I think there are 3 M's, like the company. Something that is memorable, something that's meaningful, and something that is momentous. Let's dig into it. Memorable. Chad showing up in a sleeping gown, pulling $40 out of his hat. Our event MC, Leslie Samuel, showing up as Neo on stage. Having a violinist greet you in the crowd. Having someone walk on stage playing their own walk-on music. All those things are unexpected and unusual. You can do things in your business that are unexpected and unusual, and it will create a memory. If you're the Savannah Bananas, you follow Jesse Cole's rule of do something that's never been done on a baseball field. Like a banana as a headset. It doesn't work, but it's crazy. A break-dancing first base coach. Not ever done before. A guy batting on stilts. They've got a cowboy who is he's a pitcher and a rodeo artist, and he is actually a really good pitcher. Combine the familiar into somewhere new and create new memories. And then there's multisensory. And I think you guys have seen the research. The more senses that you engage, the more memorable something will become. And the olfactory sense is the most powerful. We have to be careful how we use it because it can trigger people, and I'll explain why in a minute. But it's so powerful what it can do. I have literally had bread bakers in the back of a room because I want people to feel like they're at home. I've literally had a hotel, a Marriott, create vats of coffee and get out box fans and blow the odor across the room because I want people to linger because I think coffee makes people want to stick around and talk. And then when people are traveling a long way to come someplace, I've had tropical scents like orange and lemon as they arrive to help them feel refreshed. But this can go awry. I spent 7 months in Kenya when I was in college. And I lived for half the time on the coast right next to a sugar plantation. And on the plantation, there was a refinery. And if you know anything about sugar refining, they use sulfur to make the sugar turn white. Well, some days the wind would blow the wrong direction. It would actually go out to sea instead of off of the sea, and it would blow right into our little camp. And sulfur, if you know, smells like rotten eggs. And the people that I lived with, when my stomach would get upset, brought me bananas. To this day, if I smell sulfur or rotten eggs, I'm immediately transported back to that little village in Kenya. My stomach gets upset, and I think I smell banana. That's a bad memory, but you can create good memories with the right odors. So think about the role of senses in making something memorable. So there are 25 more ways that I've thought of, and I'm going to spend the rest of my time talking about these, but it's got to start with a little math, because everything should be based in science, right? So here's how the formula works. If you remember college algebra, or if you don't, I'm going to break it down for you. When you solve for f of x, x in this case is experience. So you take 5 times...
Hey, Phil.
Yeah?
Phil.
Who is that?
Hey, Phil.
What?
Phil, are you really going to do this?
Of course I'm going to do this.
Hey, dude, this is boring.
Okay. If you were taking a picture of that and I saw you, delete it right now. Everything on that slide was totally meaningless, just a bunch of garbage thrown together. Don't you hate going to presentations where they do that to you? Oh my gosh, I don't even know what half that stuff means, literally. I just grabbed a bunch of acronyms and threw them together. So here's the reality. We are up against a hard charge to make something unforgettable, because most things in life are not unforgettable. This is the unforgettable curve that I've created. I don't know how true it is, but it follows a typical bell curve. 10% of unforgettable things are terrible. You wish people didn't talk about them, but they can't help it. I understand last night that might have happened. I don't know the details. We had it happen at our conference this year, so don't worry. 10% are totally unforgettable, and you will remember it the rest of your life, like my experience with Jim Starkey when I was 7 years old. The rest of it, 80%, the middle, is forgettable. They will forget about it, therefore it's boring. Boring doesn't just mean it's putting you to sleep like Chad was doing. It just means they're not going to remember it, and that's not good. Jessica, are you in the room? If she were, doesn't matter if she is. The Now team, if you guys put on this event, and a month from now we all forgot that we were ever here, didn't talk about it, it didn't change us, would it have been worth it, Eric? Eric's asleep too. No, it would not be worth it. So let me ask you a question. This is time for audience participation. Popcorn style, what makes an event boring? And don't talk about this one because that wouldn't be fair. So what makes an event boring to you? Give me a few things. Go ahead, shout them out. What's that? Subject matter might be boring to you. Okay, what else? Lack of energy, lack of interaction. Okay, what else? Confusing presentations like that slide I just showed you. Yeah, absolutely. What else? Monotone body language. Yes, one more. No food. Yeah, that can definitely be boring, especially if you like to eat like I do. All right, so I asked my friends online, because Facebook is the source of all knowledge, right? What they thought is boring or forgettable, and this is what they said. They said standing in line for bathrooms or coffee. That can be the worst if they get really long. You already said it, bad food or no food, weak coffee or no coffee, speakers who are boring when their content, monotone, read from their slides. You guys, it didn't happen here, but at large events, you can go through the registration line and get on the other side. They give you your badge, they give you a bag of goodies, and then you're like, oh snap, what do I do now? You don't know anyone. You're looking around, no one's there to tell you what to do next. That's the most awkward moment, in my opinion, at events. And then, this one happened to me at a large event that I won't name, because some of you have been there, some of you have spoken there. But they had this amazing keynote session. 5,000 people in the room. I don't even remember the speaker's name, but I do remember it was very moving. And I wanted to turn to the friends who were with me and talk about it. An AV team, this is no slam on you, but the AV team decided in their brilliance that they were going to help clear the room. And so what did they do? They turned on Born to be Wild at 11 on the channel, and they drove us out of the room because we couldn't think, we couldn't hear. Everything that I had thought about talking about was out of my brain. I felt like I was being moved out of that room like a cow. Not good, not good. Here's Ebbinghaus. Hermann Ebbinghaus was an 18th or 19th century psychologist in Germany. He came up with the forgetting curve. He studied retention, and he wanted to know, how quickly do people forget the things they learn if it has not been reinforced? So, quick guess here, within 1 hour of a presentation or something you learned, how much do you think you will remember? Quick guess. 10% you'll still remember? Oh, okay. Someone else? 20% you'll still remember. Well, actually what he found is you'll remember about 50%, or forget about 50%, because he's put it in the terms of forgetting. Within a day, you'll forget 70%. Within a week, you'll forget 75%. And this is the clincher. Within a month, you will only remember 10% of what you've learned or experienced if it's not been reinforced. Again, if you're in the business of creating memories or teaching people, this is really important to get your hands around. All right, so the first thing we want to do is we want to make it memorable. We want to make it sticky. We want people to have some kind of memory of it and keep reinforcing that. The second thing we want to do is make it personally meaningful. Several of our speakers and guests here are in this picture. I was part of the digital Wichita planning team for a while, and last year we were having a meeting getting ready for the event, and this is not that meeting, but it's the same location. So that's the only picture I had. And I was telling a story about the Savannah Bananas, because we had a common friend whose daughter had been on the team, and the Savannah Bananas had gone out of their way to fly this woman and her two daughters home in the midst of a family crisis. And you can probably already tell I'm an emotional guy, and I started to cry as I told the story. Well, my waitress came up, and she was asking everybody if they wanted something else, and she saw the tears in my eyes and said, "Honey, you need another drink." She turns around, goes to the bar, and brings me back another drink. Didn't ask me if I wanted it, and she charged me for it, but it created a humorous moment for us. We laughed. We'd cried. We'd laughed. We were then able to go into a deeper conversation about the things that we needed. It broke the ice. Sometimes that's what we need to do, is make things meaningful. We have two of our favorite speakers here. Oh my gosh, you're amazing, Jen. Here, everyone is on an emotional journey, whether they're coming to your website, whether they're coming to your store, whether they're coming to an event. When you walked in the door yesterday, or if today's your first day, you had things going on in your life. There were things that you were thinking about at work, at home, in the rest of your life that had nothing to do with this conference, that were affecting your emotional state of mind. Event planners understand that, and we try to bring you in and help you feel safe. Jessica talked yesterday about psychological safety. That's a big deal when you're creating experiences like this. We have to make you feel like we've got your back. You're safe while you're here. You can trust us that we've thought about the details so you can enter into this community and get to know the people and start to learn. So we start with the starting point. And then, how do we help them focus? There's intentional things. Jessica, you and your team have done a great job of doing lots of little things to help us enter into this experience throughout it. This board in the back, the sponsors are creating experiences and not just trying to sell something, which is amazing. But then you anticipate, okay, what are the moments where people are going to feel tired and want to go to sleep? How can we counteract that? When are they going to be feeling mad? And maybe that's okay. Do we want to intensify that, or do we need to back away from that? When are they likely to tear up? We shouldn't follow a sad moment or a tearful moment with lots more of that. Instead, we should turn it around, make them get on their feet, make them laugh. When are they likely to feel happy? And then, what are the things that we have at our disposal to enhance that? Music can be a powerful tool. Lighting, these guys have done a great job with the lighting in this room. Perhaps it is the aromas that you're using. I don't know if you guys I know probably everybody in the room has heard of Hamilton, but Lin-Manuel Miranda wrote In the Heights. Sorry, I don't get that right. And that musical and movie were very powerful for me. First time I went to it, the next morning, I remembered 14 personal connections to that musical, things that I could relate to, like the boy who had fallen in love with the girl but didn't have the guts to tell her, like the girl who dropped out of college, didn't want to tell the family because they had sacrificed so much for her to go, like the moment the entire community grieved when the grandmother died. There was personal meaning, there was universal meaning, and some of the stuff was very timely. And also timeless. When we tell great stories, that's what we can do for our audiences or for our customers. If you had the chance, if you're creating an event, Terry, or in your store, and you could write a score, or Tommy, if you're still in the room, if you're creating a video game, it's the same kind of thought process. How do you think through the experience that people are having scene by scene, and what kind of music would you want at that moment? How do you think about the time of day? Afternoon's different than morning. Evening is different than noon. Thinking about where are people at emotionally and how do we move them along. Great film scores intensify the drama of a film script. Try it out for yourself, turn off the sound, and watch how interesting it is. It's probably not nearly as interesting as if the music's there. And if it's done well, you don't notice it. But you also have to know who your customer is, and there are far more qualified people in this room to tell you about how to build a customer avatar. But start by asking your marketing department if you don't know how. But when you're thinking about who it is walking through that door, it makes a difference. When I think about the person coming through the door at our event, it's likely a woman in her 30s or 40s who's a marketer working for someone else's business, and she lives in North America. Okay, if that's true, what does she listen to? What has she been dealing with at home? She likely has kids that she had to leave behind with the husband or the in-laws or her parents. And she's thinking about them still. Maybe there's something else going on in her life. How do we help her feel secure? One thing that we could do, ask everyone to grab their phone and send a message to thank the person that's making it possible for them to be there. Then all of a sudden, there's relief. They're able to put that aside and focus in. If you don't know, talk to your customers, have conversations, find out what is interesting and important to them. I had a conversation with one of our customers 2 weeks ago, found out she's neurodivergent. And it's something that we really haven't done a lot of thinking about, of how to plan events around the neurodivergent issues like ADHD and so forth, and we will be, because it's increasingly an issue. If you find out what they care about, then you can intensify those moments. All right, the last thing we do is we make it momentous. So Chip and Stan Heath are professors at Stanford. If you don't have this book, you should buy it after you buy mine, or before, it doesn't matter. It's really important for understanding moments. But they talk about compounding moments, and they talk about this idea that not all moments are created equally. We can't pay attention to every single moment within the experience that someone's having with us. So instead, we focus on the chief moments within that experience, and those moments are first impressions. You guys know this when you meet someone for the first time. If you don't have a good first impression of someone, it's hard to overcome that. Same thing is true with a store. I went to a music store and I walked in the first time through the front door and it was chaos. I found out a year later that they were getting ready for school instrument rentals. And so they had all the instruments everywhere, but I didn't want to go back because I thought the guy doesn't know how to run his business. It left an impression. First impressions matter. Last impressions matter. When you're creating an event, one of the things I've learned over the years is it's really easy to focus on first impressions and those peak moments, those times when everybody's together and they're having a moment of celebration like the party last night or whatever it might be during the day. But last impressions often get our last efforts. And for years, we would have our picture of all of our staff right at the end of the event. We would get everybody up on stage and we would have this classic picture that would go on social, but we were making a mistake, because we weren't out in the lobby greeting people as they left. And so when people left, it was kind of like this huge letdown. And so we said, we're reverse engineering that. We're moving when we do the picture because we need to be there saying goodbye and creating a lasting impression. And Mark Schaefer's been at this event. One year we created a fireworks show to end the conference, to create this amazing, unexpected ending. And then there's this idea of brick and mortar. And Chad does a great job with this. Brick and mortar is, how do you stitch together the experiences, whether it's an event, a learning experience, or whatever it might be? How do you stitch them together like mortar holds together bricks? And MC does that. Experiences can do that. Thinking through carefully, not just laying brick after brick after brick. If you do that without mortar, the wall will fall down. But if you do it with mortar, it's going to withstand the fiercest winds. Right, Jen? Oh, she left. Then there's the snowball effect. So we can make something meaningful not by focusing on everyone, but by focusing on one person at a time. One year there was a person who came to our event and she was feeling incredibly hesitant, and she was actually getting ready to leave. I could tell she was getting ready to leave, and I stopped her and I said, "What's going on? You know, how's your experience?" And she said, "It's terrible. I can't find anyone to help me with my Instagram." So I asked some questions about what she wanted to learn. I said, "Would you mind opening your program with me?" And we found 3 sessions on Instagram. I said, "These 3 people can help you. If you'll go, sit in the front row and ask them questions, they can help." It turned her experience around. And all of a sudden, I did for one person something I could no way do for every person at an event, whether it's 200 people, whether it's 2,000 people. But when all the staff start doing that together, we create this compounding effect. It's like a snowball. It gets bigger and bigger, and all of a sudden you've created a positive momentum within the experience. I'm not going to take time on this, but I think it's an important question for you to think about. What in your business is causing your customers to say, this is boring, and they walk away and they don't tell you? It's the silent departure. People who have had a bad experience will tell you. People who've had a really good experience will tell you, or tell your online friends. But all that 80% in the middle, they're not telling you. You don't know. So it's important for you to think about what could make that and how do we fix it. I don't have a lot of time to go into this, but there's a whole chapter devoted to it in the book. I think there's 5 threats to events. This list would look different probably for a business, but dullness is boredom. Resistance is that lady I just talked about who's like, this isn't for me, I don't like it here, I'm not sure I'm going to stay. Isolation is the person who's standing back and they're not engaging, they're sitting against the wall, they're on their phone, they're not telling you anything. Exhaustion is the person who was out till 2 o'clock last night and was up again this morning at 6 o'clock, and they're falling asleep at their desk, they're falling asleep at the table, or they're overwhelmed, there's so much going on. And then there's the squirrel of distraction. People who can't stay focused, and how do we help them? 5 ways to solve it. The dull, boredom. We create transformational moments, personal moments for people that take it from boredom to something that they will never forget. The resistance, you do what I did for that one lady of saying, you know what, we can solve that, and all of a sudden she's open to new ideas. We help the person who's feeling isolated find their people. They don't have to feel like they're part of the whole community or the whole store or whatever it might be, but they need to find some people like themselves. The person who's exhausted, we help them find the energy that they need to keep on going. And then the person who's distracted, we help them find engagement. Close with a story. In 2016, we moved from a single hotel event to a multi-hotel, or what's called a citywide event, where we're going to have 3, 5, 7 hotels at once. And we were concerned that people might leave the event and never come back. And there were 3 problems that we wanted to solve. One was they might go to the hotel or a coffee shop to work. Secondly, they might go back to the hotel room to catch a nap. And then third, they might want to leave to brush their teeth. So we figured, let's create a space with Wi-Fi and tables where people could work. Let's create a quiet zone where someone could kick up their feet and take a nap. And in Malene's case, we created a way for her to solve a problem. Malene came from Denmark, and she came to our information desk and said, I've got a slight problem. I forgot my toothbrush and toothpaste at the hotel. It's 25 minutes away. Can you help me? And they took her to the bathroom, and I noticed, Jessica, you guys have it in the speaker room back here, and there was a basket with toothbrushes and toothpaste and mouthwash and dental floss. And she was so blown away, she said, I'm buying my ticket right now. I'm coming back next year. And not only that, I'm going to bring my friends back with me. And look at the ROI of one toothbrush. 5-figure income. I'm not going to calculate how much because it depends on what ticket they bought. But one small act of customer service can be so transformational and memorable. You can find those moments within your business. I'm going to end right now. The people over at Meeting Place are going to bring me something that I want to share with you. And while they're on their way over, why don't you bring it up onto the table there? I'm going to have you tell me about it in just a second. By the way, come back to the table if you were counting the elephants as we went. This one does not count. So everyone in between does. One person will get a free book. You can also buy the book, and I'm glad to sign them while you're here. And I think all my information is inside the app if you want to follow up with me. But I want to end by doing something real quick. We're going to do something I call jazz tasting. I've done it with wine. I've done it with art. I've tried doing it with cheese. It doesn't work so well. But the ladies over here at Meeting Place say there's something called coffee tasting. So I'm going to taste a cup of coffee here and encourage you to go try some of their pour-over coffees. I wanted to do it with that coffee, but I think all of you have tasted theirs. I haven't tasted this yet, so I have no idea what I'm getting ready to experience. I'll ask you about it after I've smelled it and tasted it. Is that caramel? Yeah, okay. It's got some sweetness to it, a little acidity to it. Okay. Don't tell me. Well, what country is it from? Colombia. Okay. What's the name of it?
You want me to tell you?
Yeah.
Blueberry cinnamon.
Oh, it's blueberry. There you go. Okay, this is a little breakfast coffee. All right, cool. Well, here is a little blueberry cinnamon. Is that the name of it? Blueberry cinnamon from Colombia. All right. We'll keep it short and sweet because that's what breakfast is. Thank you very much. Enjoy being your speaker here today.
Outstanding. Wow.
Thank you.
I just can't imagine being able to just pick up an instrument, and I couldn't whistle that.
I couldn't either.
You don't whistle? It's funny. I do know other musicians though they're
Yeah, I
like
can.
whistling. Nope. I can play any other instrument though. That's awesome. How good was that, guys?